Ladies and gentlemen, we're back with more podcasting action live. And the time right now, 3:05 a.m. right here in Singapore. It's super early right here in Asia. But over the other side in Europe, my friend is just, getting ready to talk to us and chat about his latest Cardano NFT drop, as well as other exciting projects that he has ongoing. So without further ado, we should do a proper introduction for him first before we bring him on to our virtual podcasting studio. In today's episode, we invited Aidan Hughes, aka Brutes, from KMFDM to talk about upcoming NFT project. So we will get him to tell us his mantra, what got you here, who or where he's heading next, and what's the cornerstone of what is behind his thinking. This is a short introduction for him. The first time I saw artwork by Aidan Hughes, I think it was probably back in the mid-90s. I was in the local Singapore Tower record store, back when you can still actually purchase physical CDs. And I came across an album by KMFDM. I studied the artwork of Angst, which is an album that I absolutely love. And I'm still in love with this album. But another thing that I love with the album was the dynamic black, white, and red illustrations. It was one of my first time buying a CD based on artwork alone. And Aidan, he's a really experienced illustrator. And today we're really excited to actually get to interview him about his first ever NFT drop. He's a commercial artist born in 1956 in Merseyside, England. In the 80s, Hughes published a pulp-style magazine called Brute, which earned him notoriety as well as becoming an occasional pseudonym for Hughes. Aidan Hughes is a well-known artist for creating most of the album covers for the industrial band KMFDM. Two of KMFDM's music videos, A Drug Against War, Son of a Gun, were animated versions of Hughes' artwork. His other work has included outdoor murals, including the 75-meter mural in Barga, Italy during 2003, which has since been covered over with a bang, unfortunately, and a wide variety of CD sleeves. That includes Massive Attack and Mad Professor's WTAF album, as well as computer games, clothing, furniture, storyboards, logos, tattoos, and other multimedia. So without further ado, let's bring him on to our virtual podcasting studio. How are you, my friend?
Oh, hi, man.
Hear me?
You're looking remarkably fresh for 3 o'clock in the morning, I must say.
Yeah, I'm a zombie, I'm a night owl. I know that geniuses work late night, right? I'm not saying that I'm a genius, but I always love to stay up and to accommodate my podcast guest time zone, and I love it at 3 a.m. because that means the conversation is gonna get even more interesting. So I understand, you had a few drinks tonight, right? Tell us about how your evening has been so far over there in Prague. Is it Prague in Czech Republic?
It's my mother-in-law's birthday today, so we got some family round and some friends of her from Moravia, and we drank Slivovica and we ate Buchter, and everybody's down there in the courtyard now, completely blasted, and I'm trying to hold it all together for your amazing podcast.
And you're the one who can still keep it together, right? And do an interview after a drinking session. This is incredible.
Well, I'll tell you what's really funny though, Wayne. My wife having to translate from English to Czech about what NFTs are and seeing the expression on my mother-in-law's face. I mean, my mother-in-law is actually younger than me. And so it's really funny seeing this like clash of cultures, and you're talking about the future, and it's like they just don't comprehend. And I think that's the problem with NFTs, because there's a lot of people, especially like artists like myself, who work in a certain way and don't like banks. And don't like to sign anything, and artists are completely paranoid about everything like copyrights, and so to go into something like NFTs that is like to them it's like complicated. It's coming from the other hemisphere of the brain. It's like once I applied for a job in this like banking thing, and I thought, yeah, I'll be good at this. I'm a good salesman. But then there was a certain period when it just went into this certain type of speaking and writing, and in the emails and everything. and I was just lost, And I think in a lot of ways that's one of the major barriers that has to be breached is the miners and the NFT and the banking Bitcoin people with artists and musicians and the people whose work that they're actually going to be making money from. Because if they don't, it's just going to be like the old days with like the record industry and the modeling industry, this big divide and people just getting eaten up by a machine. But it's early days, and it's the future, and future is my middle name.
I think you nailed it right there about the language. In order to really fully describe what NFTs are to maybe people who are not really technology savvy, I'm actually super curious how your wife actually translate non-fungible tokens into Czech language, because I even for someone like me, right, who speak a second language as well, in Chinese describe it.
Susanna explained it like this, Aidan has had a house which he bought really cheap many years ago, and he's been adding to it for decades, and now finally he wants to sell it, but when the people who buy his house from him sell it again, he gets 10%, and she went, okay, so I think what is necessary is a way of explaining this to people, because I've had several environmentalists giving me shit on Twitter, about the environmental impacts of NFTs, And I've got to say this right now, is that if anybody is owed a carbon footprint, it's me. Because since like the late 80s, man, through just being poverty stricken, I learned to cut all the corners of lifestyle, no car, making shoes last 25 years, always getting public transport or walking. I've never burned so much, burning coal is just like, it's a fantasy to me, But, and so I do understand, I am, in fact, I'll tell you this, I haven't used a piece of virgin paper since 1984, right?
Wow.
In 1984, I was using recycled paper, and I've always been like that, I was recycling before they had bins, So something like this is very important for me, and I do understand people's concerns, and I would like to be able to assuage their concerns and try and, get this NFT thing. It's just like the paranoia that I experienced in like the 1980s when, I remember when I did my first book, I would have to lovingly, make every letter perfect and then take it to this like holy man, the typesetter, and then he would give me these photo mechanical transfers on these glorious glossy sheets. And I'd go, oh my God, I made a mistake on page 3. And I had to take it back and pay for the whole shit all over again, And we were supposed to accept that. And that's why so many of us, was like, working class punks who wanted to do magazines, things like this. We were always had this barrier between the old style printing guys. Oh, no, don't understand. And then when the revolution happened, I was just kind of split in two because I'm a socialist and I'm a unionist, but at the same time, I wanted the future, I understood that like if these new digital presses came out and people could design stuff on, Word or Excel or whatever, it was a revolution. But a lot of people in my socialist groups were saying it's going to put so many of these people out of work. And I feel the same way about NFTs. There will be blood on the streets, and it has to be worth it for the future.
Fantastically well put. I think there's so many things that you mentioned there we can actually deep dive into. I think one of the first things that really impressed me is how your wife actually explained in really simplistic terms, right, what NFT stands for. It beats, telling people that NFTs are non-fungible token, which is a unit of data stored on a digital ledger called a blockchain that certifies a digital asset to be unique and therefore not interchangeable. That's so uninteresting and non-sexy, right? I think one of the ways that you bring people over is to put it down in layman's terms and tell them the benefits.
Tell you how she did it.
I gotta hear this, in Czech language. I think the next time we should invite your wife to come on to the podcast and describe to us NFTs in the Czech language. And you also mentioned about working class, right? I think your background is something that probably we didn't really explore deeper into when you came on to another podcast of ours, I think over a year ago, How Time Flies, right? And I always been very curious about your upbringing, your roots, and being working class Liverpoolian. Tell us, how the growing up years in Merseyside helped to shape, your mentality, your mantra, and it's translated now into all these, I would call it brutal art because that's very British, but in another great positive way as well that defines your identity. And now you're exploring, into this technology, field of NFTs to bring your art to the next level. So tell us about how it all started for you back in Merseyside, Liverpool, England.
Well, first of all, the area where I come from is pretty brutal. I mean, all the old school 1970s things like the racism and the sexism and all the rest of it. But I remember it as more of just like kind of a jokey type of thing. There didn't seem to be any hate. It was just like one of these like bad 1970s movies, comedy movies, if you understand what I mean, like Carry On or something. Nobody was really antagonistic. And, we had black people in our community, but you never saw really any like racist groups or gangs of racist people. I mean, even then, back then, you wouldn't be socially accepted or be cool if you were a racist, a teenager. It's just you wouldn't get into any of the clubs. It was just like having a bad haircut. So yeah, there was that thing growing up. But I think that, as I say, my culture is if we like you, we insult you. And a lot of that comes across in the Brute book because it's a very rough type of humor, especially between the women. You get two friends and they will just like ridicule each other's hair and fake boobs and everything, and then just like crack up laughing in the ladies' toilets. They don't get offended, or in fact, you're expected to do it. It's like, come on, we're good friends now. Take the piss out of me. And like everybody I grew up with and people I've worked with who are from that neighborhood, they all exactly know what it's like. But I think that now there's a tendency that we can't do that anymore. We can't just rib each other, just to get a little bit of a rise because somebody might misconstrue it in some way, But in the 70s, I worked in some factories when it was really funny. You would have straight guys who would make jokes about themselves being gay, and that was like really strange for me. Most I always thought straight guys would never ever have anything to, but they would tell, make up these gay stories about themselves that they had at the weekend, and their friends would do the same thing, and they would laugh, but they were all straight guys, and so that's kind of where Brute and that sort of humor came from. And for many years, I kind of look back at my past and where I'm from and thought, oh my God, that's just like so human. Some of the people I used to know and the places I used to go, if I look back at it now, it's like, oh my God, I should never have even walked into those places. But I don't know, maybe I see it with like a rosier glow or different times or whatever. But even though there was all these prejudices and things like that, England just seemed to be a much friendlier, more creative place than it is now with all those restrictions in place. But I don't know, I haven't been back there. I just think England's absolutely fucked now. Just and I read a great quote by someone that said, in order to be embarrassed by something, you have had to give it respect, And I think, that's fair enough, because I never, growing up in England, the first thing I wanted to do is get out, even just to France for the day, just to get off the island, And so when I hear all these terrible things about the UK and these queues, lorries, and unplucked turkeys and empty shelves, I don't think, they deserve it, because you know, I can never remember a time in the UK when people weren't trying to make ends meet. I mean, both my parents, I mean, you know, I was born in 1956, so both my parents were like post-war, and they knew about the rations, but it never got any better, you know. We were all told in the UK that one day it's going to get better. And just when we got a taste of it, Brexit happened, you know, and doomed to another half century of austerity, and, you know, just it's ridiculous. So I actually realised that, you know, I should have been born on another continent, but at the same time realised, and it's because I was born there that gives me my artistic and creative attitude, you know, if that makes sense. And
Makes a
so I
lot of
was talking
sense.
to this
Yeah.
when my wife and I were at Ivy the other night, and we were saying that, like, you can't make safe spaces for artists. You can't, because the whole idea of art is you have to throw out these questions. If you make it a safe space, you won't answer those questions. Art isn't there to give answers, it's there to make questions. You know? And if you don't have a hard time, you don't have a traumatic experience, then the art will just dry up. You know, you can't iron society level, you know, so that everybody just is like safe and, you know, only reads nice books, and, you know, no one talks about their past. You know, it's
100% agree with that. I think, you know, artists like you, right? You thrive when you are placed in an uncomfortable place, right? In a non-safe place or environment where you could actually, you know, triumph over adversity. And I think the best work from artists or even musicians, right? From places where, you know, out of, you know, frustration or depression, or even when they're in an uncomfortable situation, that's where, you know, you see their creativity soar and they actually create their best work. I think what you just mentioned epitomized everything that I know about Liverpool. I've been there only once. I love, you know, some of the public housing, you know, how it's been designed and arranged in neat rows, you know, just nearby Anfield Stadium, where I actually went there to watch a football game rather than to watch a live concert. I think the next time when I'm there is to watch a live music concert. But I think the, you know, the culture, the people there, and the environment, you know, conjure up so many inspiration for artists that are great like you, and of course the Beatles, and of course a great football club like Liverpool FC. I think today we're not going to be talking about just a Merseyside, you know, all show. We have to talk about your NFTs because you have already highlighted some of the negative side about the environmental impact, right? We all know that Ethereum isn't great. They're completely bad for the environment. So many artists have decided not to actually mint their NFTs on Ethereum, yeah, and have chosen some other maybe solutions. And of course, your NFT drop is on Cardano. So tell us whether this is a conscious decision, especially to actually shut up the people who are actually talking about the bad environmental impact. And is this because of its green, you know, solution aspects that makes you, you know, attract, you know, you to actually mint your NFT art, especially this NFT drop, which is basically featuring two of KMFDM previous artworks of yours. Did you make that decision, or was it a decision made by KMFDM to actually do it on the Cardano chain instead?
Well, yeah, I mean, the thing is, I didn't like the sound of Ethereum from the word go. You know, it did seem to me like a real massive problem, especially if NFTs became the gold rush that I imagined they would be. And they were, you know, I did think to myself, you know, I don't want to be this guy that waves people away on the dock as they go to a new horizon and then regress it. But at the same time, I had to weigh up, like I said before, you know, my environmental concerns with that. But when I was approached by the Cardano guys, John Hoffmaker, they kind of convinced me that not only were Cardano's less damaging to the environment, but they were also working on a series of new measures that would make them virtually pure within like a couple of years. And that's good enough for me. You know, I don't expect, you know, it's like, as I say, you know, it's like when you have a military coup or something like this, you know, of course there's going to be blood on the streets, but eventually things will calm the fuck down, you know. And you know, and these things that we're talking about now will be part of your phone, be part of your fridge, be part of your you know, your whole outlook has just absorbed them like you absorbed mobile phones, you know, and it's basically just a race. I mean, when you look at things like the other races, like the space race or IT, I mean, they took fucking decades, man. I've sat here with friends of mine, and in 6 months, the world has turned upside down. You know, it's you know, this is the fastest race of all time. And the thing is, you know, I'm a go-getter type of guy. You know, I'm not just going to sit there grumbling while the world flashes past me. I want part of this, you know, and I want to actually not just sort of use it as a place to sell things like eBay, you know, but I want to actually start doing things specifically for the platforms, you know, and so actually pushing the envelope out even more, you know, and trying to find out what we can actually do with this, you know.
This is fantastic. I think the team from Cardano has done a great job by identifying you and your artwork, you know, as one of the projects that could maybe give their cryptocurrency, even more visibility and more discoverability as well. I think more fans, especially of KMFDM and your artwork, right, will now be more familiar with Cardano because it's already one of the top performing cryptocurrencies on the market in 2021. And I personally know that Cardano has a wide range of, you know, artists and investors who is large market gains as well.
Or in like a week, you know.
Yeah, there's so many, you know, energy efficient process, which is seen as far more eco-friendly than the likes of Bitcoin, right? So tell us, you know, because I also am very curious, you know, are you a cryptocurrency investor? When was the last time, you know, you actually come across cryptocurrency? Do you have like lots of, you know, Bitcoin, you know, wallet, or is it something that you're also like many, you know, in the world right now is discovering?
My first wallet. I literally just opened my first wallet as soon as the KMFDM stuff dropped. I mean, as I say, you know, I don't know anything about it. I'm on Reddit, I'm on several different cryptocurrency sites and everything. And it's, you know, I must admit, I need to find a way. I need a, you know, NFTs for dummies tutorial. And I have actually watched quite a few of them on, and I do get the gist. But you know, but for me, there needs to be a kind of bingo moment. You know, that's what I'm looking for. You know, when I actually opened up my Adelites account today, and I looked at how much we've made, I thought to myself, yeah, you know what? It's like it just doesn't seem like real money. It seems like funny money, and funny money is the best type of money. You know, it doesn't sit there in a bank like a stagnant lake. It rushes like a waterfall, you know, and you know, it keeps changing and evolving, and sometimes it disappears and other times it's, you know, it's a flash flood, and that's the beauty of it. You know, it's more of a game than about money. And I can see, like, that's, you know, there's some people they're checking these things 24/7, you know, they're addicted to it, you know? I think
you made a really great point about the you know, volatility, especially for cryptocurrencies, right? Like you know, it could be 1 week, you know, up 20%, and then another day it just drop by another 30. You know, it's pretty up and down. But like what you mentioned, this could even be funny money that turns out to be the best you know, approach or strategy you ever make, because like if artist's idea of money is what it was yesterday, right? They will actually lose it to the people who know what money will be tomorrow. And although we are, you know, not so keen to talk about money being, you know, just solve everything or every problem in the world, but it does buy happiness, right? If you have invested in the future and actually earned it.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I think the levels of what we used to think we needed to be happy have changed during the lockdown. And you know, what's happening now isn't like a future thing. It's already been happening. You know, people have been like cutting out the middleman. You know, I mean, just to use like one example, you got OnlyFans. You know, years ago, those people would have been exploited by a middleman, you know, who took, you know, all their money and gave them some cigarettes and a change of underwear for their services. But now these people are empowered to, you know, do exactly what they want, as much as they want, and only work a couple of hours a day, never get out of their pajamas. And I think that's absolutely fantastic, you know. and like the universal basic income. You know, we've got, you know, it's like I'm talking to my wife all the time about the kids' education, and I think, why are we still educating these children? Some outdated post-war idea of, you know, if you go through university, you'll get a good job. But the success rate for that is like the success rate for divorce, you know. I mean, it's 50-50. It's like, you know, it's like Russian roulette. You put all that time and energy into the most exciting period of your life, you accrue all that debt, and there's still no guarantee of a job at the end of it. And even if there was, those jobs are all outdated by the time you get to the end of your education. You know, there's no education for jobs of the future. You know, people are not addressing the fact that, COVID or not, you know, robots or not, we're going to end up in some sort of like new housing project specifically for people who work from home. You know, and we will have families under those new ideals. But the thing is, like, the governments, the education system, the people who build new houses have just not caught up to this idea, you know. And NFTs, for me, are just like part of this whole idea. NFTs, you know, I've got to tell this great story. You know, I used this in a talk I said recently, that like back in 1996, when I first got seriously into the internet, I put up some images online and said, oh yeah, by the way, these are like, you know, you can have t-shirts of these, small, medium, large, you know. I went to bed and I woke up the next morning, opened my computer, and I paid the next month's rent because like I'd sold 50 or 75 t-shirts while I was asleep, you know. And so I was so impressed by that, you know, that like I thought, well, that's got to be the future, you know. Being able to get 8 hours sleep and still earn money, you know. And
I love it that you're bringing in, you know, the topic of how education should be redesigned, right? Because it's already so antiquated. Yeah, all these education systems around the world, not just over there in the UK or in Europe, but even in Singapore, we are starting so many outdated stuff, and it becomes like why are kids still memorizing, you know, textbooks when you can Google stuff from your mobile phone, right, or your iPads? And why are they learning a skill where it doesn't really apply to what they do, you know, in the future? Maybe even like 3 months down the road, things could change again. So you mentioned something about, you know, your kids as well and parenting. I think this is a great way to segue into that topic. Tell us, you know, besides education, right, how should parents actually smoothen this transition and bring their kids, you know, to the correct, or should we say the appropriate, the current education levels when it comes to making work that is appreciated, that helps them to make a living. At the same time, they're not relevant. They're not irrelevant, you know, maybe months down the road when you graduate. How should parents actually bring their kids into this world of the NFTs as well as the metaverses as well, where, you know, do we need to actually practice or adopt a reverse mentoring attitude? Like, we know kids are actually smarter than us, right? They're the ones who are already spending all their time on Discord servers,
Roblox, and more smarter than me. There's no way my kids are more smarter than me. But I think that the education system is geared towards not only getting a job, but being like this like massive success, you know. And I can tell you right now that like massive success is not as popular as it used to be. People look at millionaires and billionaires and celebrities now, and they're not as impressed as they used to be. They don't care, you know. They don't follow them. They don't care who they're fucking. In fact, when they make things like that Imagine video, you know, with all those celebrities going, free the people and all that stuff like that, they just want to vomit. So that whole idea of being fantastically successful and blah, 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 it just seems like an old 80s Duran video, you know what I mean? You know, the young people these days, they want like a good pair of shoes and a jacket that will last them 20 years. You know, they're not into that bling bling every 5 minutes thing. I mean, okay, sure, a lot of people are. But the thing is, after lockdown, do you even know where to go to wear off, you know, to show off all your new clothes? You know, everywhere's been closed down for you. You know, it's all changing. So a whole new culture and philosophy will emerge. But education has to reflect that, you know. It has to say, for example, has to teach people ethically as opposed to You know, everything I tell you is leading towards you might be getting a job in this field. Do you see what I mean? You know, it's like we should be teaching people entrepreneurship, empathy, you know, and teaching a way that we can now make money, yeah, without being exploited, and also, you know, give back to people as we become more successful. You know, we have to take this whole taxation thing out of the hands of the government, you know, and it's already been happening with, like, you know, crowdsourcing. You know, I think that's fantastic. Never done it myself, but back in the day, I would have to go cap in hand to the British Film Institute, you know, just trying to get funding, you know, and you know, licking all these horrible boots, you know, just to get a couple of thousand to make a video. Well, now we don't need those people, you know, and education should reflect that. You know, we shouldn't be telling the you know, these people that they are, oh, so you didn't get a job as an archaeologist after like 15 years at college. Oh, that's, you know, but guess what? You know, there aren't any jobs of any other type. You know, that's cheating people, you know. It's cheating people. You can't let people get away with that. You know?
So in other words, right, what you're saying is that education, yeah, our system should actually teach our children more about diversity, inclusivity, equity, conversation, teach them how to develop self-confidence and learn how to actually find their way towards their own achievement,
also,
right?
But also the value of money, you know, if they're not impressed by being rich, you know, and like, as I say, go and bling all the big cars, then if they become successful, we have to also educate them in what to do with that money, you know.
And in a way, our current antiquated education system all around the world, right, is actually making them more boring, right? Making our children feeling less curious, you know, about new ideas or even new technology. And also, like what you mentioned, the new value of money is something that they don't teach. Yeah. And they don't really teach them how to actually learn to make new mistakes. Yeah. And so actually the idea of learning from old mistakes, go make new ones. These are the things that education system doesn't really encourage.
Well, you know, I mean, so, you know, I observe my kids a lot, and I'm determined not to bring them up in the old ways, you know. But even without my tutelage, they are rebellious. You know, they're rebellious as fuck. You know, they're going to do anything that anybody tells them to do, no matter how much they cutify or pinkify it, or, you know, talk down to them. And I love that. You know, and, you know, you don't need to you can't make a kid rebellious. It's got to come from the soul, you know. And my kids are, you know, they go, I'm not going to do that.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Parenting 101 podcast. This is great. I love, you know, we go off on a tangent and talk about education, parenting especially. And I think probably people are watching this, you know, are appreciating and loving this conversation so far. And we have to maybe plug more about your NFT drop, because what I noticed is that it's available as a series of 50, right? Like what we're seeing here. Tell us what goes behind the decision-making process of picking these two pieces of art that you created for, you know, KMFDM albums from the 90s, which is basically a drug against war and money. These are two of my favorite records, by the way. And who decided to pick these two out of so many other artwork they've created for industrial band KMFDM?
Well, you just said it yourself. These are your two favorite KMFDM covers, and it seems to be over the years, I've run all these KMFDM groups and spoken to fans, that these are the two most iconic KMFDM covers. You know? So they'll be the first. We've got like another maybe 3 or 4 drops of 2 each coming up in the next couple of months. Like anything else, we'd love to do the whole 50-year legacy of KMFDM art, And one of the interesting things that I like about this is the fact that you are able to give some context and backstory and some little insights into how the artwork was made. I mean, I've been putting up little stories, which I'm sure you've seen, about the creation of some of these artworks, especially like the money one. People wanted to know for years what was in the little packet. And the thing is, back in the 80s, that's how we used to buy our drugs. And it's like little corner that was cut off a magazine and then folded into an envelope, And I thought, yeah, of course, And I went to America, and then I saw everyone was getting theirs in these little plastic baggies. I was thinking, of course, that's why people keep. But and someone said, well, why don't you just change it into like a baggie? And then I thought, no, it's better as a MacGuffin. What the hell is in that bag?
So there's no correct answer to this. What's in the wrapper, right? It could even be a red pill that helps to bring anyone into the rabbit hole and into maybe another world where it's outside of reality. Yeah, it could be. It basically leaves to the imagination of anyone who interpret your artwork for money, right?
Well, the money thing, literally came from my lifestyle when I lived in Amsterdam, which was just sex, drugs, and guns, 24/7. My girlfriend at the time worked in a notorious Satanist porno club, and basically 75% of my friends were like Persian heroin dealers, and it was just, it was a really hardcore but like colourful and dynamic environments. I never left the house until 3 o'clock in the morning. I lived like that for years, and Amsterdam in those days was just it was like Hogarthian, it was just these like teeming bent over buildings over like cobbled canals, and you would go out and see these buildings propped up by gigantic pieces of wood to stop them falling. And it was an amazing time, and money really represented that thing of people pawning bits of themselves. I met this guy, one English guy in Amsterdam when I got there, and he was like a really good-looking guy, and his wife was really good-looking as well. And what they used to do was they get all dressed up and then lure tourists into back entries and then for sex, and then take money off them. And so this was also like that kind of homage to that sort of story, when the whole idea is like, you can either buy the drugs, fuck my girlfriend, or I'll blow your brains out. And but it's also a comment on capitalism, where the whole idea of no matter what you do on the top side with governments, capitalism in its purest, the rawest form will always exist on the streets. And that's what that one's about.
This is a brilliant story. I think, what you mentioned about capitalism, right? Even that is changing. We see so many, money flooding into this venture capital world, for example. And many, new projects have been funded by all these VCs, right? There's so much inflow of cash is because the fiat money system seems to no longer work. And cryptocurrency, it seems to be the new, value of money, and of course everyone is going to this space and also investing in artists and NFTs like this, because we can see that these storing your property or assets into NFT art, for example, will ensure that these are not devalued in the future. This is actually a great way to actually ensure that it doesn't just become a nice thing that you can actually flex on your wallet, but it also increase in value because there's only 500 available. It's limited to 500 owners who can own 500 copies of this as a collectible, and it's gonna be on chain forever for longevity and perpetuity reason. You could be maybe buying a piece of art and hang it on a wall, right? But over the years, you could lose it. Somebody might steal it, or you might, maybe due to age or humidity levels in Singapore, it might even fade. But digital collectibles like this will never fade, and it will stay on chain. And the owner's name will always, be credited as the person who owns this. And this is a great way to ensure that your legacy also live on, because your art is gonna be probably viewed, on maybe on metaverse, or maybe instead of on browser, right? People could maybe walk into a virtual gallery and see your art being displayed, and being able to see immediately through the metadata who owns it, how many times it has been traded, and even when it's traded in the future in secondary markets, right? Somebody might buy it for 100 times the price that they buy today at 55 ADA, which is the currency for Cardano. but maybe
Is
in
it really?
5 years' time, it could be 100,000 times more. I don't know. And the royalties will still continue to benefit, your estate, in the future. I think this is something that is great about cryptocurrency and NFTs in general. It allows, artists to be able to actually still provide a revenue stream for their generations after generations. I think it's a great idea that, entering this world of NFT and allowing your art to live on, forever. So I have another question for you where I require you to maybe talk to us for the next 5 minutes. Yeah. When you are doing this project, how involved was the band KMFDM in making this NFT drop project to fruition? Were there like many rounds of like Zoom meetings to actually, finalize the details, or even how it's been marketed and presented to ensure that, this become a success? Because I've seen some of the interactions on Twitter. Since it's dropped, right, it's already like 25% sold, which is really a great result. And only a limited numbers left for this NFT. So tell us, what was the entire process to plan this, to execute this, to even like find the right partner, to ensure that this become a success? Was it a huge project involving many personnels?
Well, from like February this year, as soon as NFT started to drop, I was contacted by about 6 different companies. And the first one was recommended to me by a friend who runs a media company in LA, and I got in touch with them, and they were just like terrible. Like spent a lot of time putting all the artwork together. But the thing is, I'm used to working with people in like TV where you get the answer to your emails yesterday, and you get updates. You get people saying nothing happening. I'll let you know when something's happening. I don't necessarily need it to be like that, but these people were just terrible. We had like 4 deadlines for drops. They missed every single one, and every time they missed a drop, they didn't even contact us. And so I got in touch with someone. They saying, "Yeah, but this is the Yukon, man. It's like the gold rush. It's like a whole new set of rules." I said, "But these people are rude." I said, "They're not professional." So I sort of said my concerns to a couple of other people, and then so I picked another guy who said, by the way, if these people don't work out, get in touch with me. And he's a big KMFDM fan, going by like 20 years. And like me, he's like a workaholic, likes to work like round the clock, Very, very impressed. The guy sending you like 2,000, every time I ask a question, he's sending you 2,000 word emails explaining the ins and outs in a language that I can kind of understand. So Sasha, who hated the initial people that we contacted, really, really had a bad feeling about him, and he was right. But yeah, like me, he really loved this new guy, John Huffmaker, and his partner, and they seem to not only be in the forefront of the whole Cardano revolution, if you like, but they also seem to love KMFDM and art and comics and stuff like that. So that was good enough for me. But the thing is, John's been so good that we actually haven't had to do lots and lots of Zoom meetings and things like this. We're happy. The thing is, if something goes wrong, you kind of have to accept it, because it's all new, unbroken territory. It's like you can't go get me the experts in NFTs, because that guy will only been on the job 6 months. So. There is no kind of legacy of information that you can get, and that's what I love about it. You're going into uncharted territory, and that's why Sasha and I, it's more, as I say, about having really good quality copies of this artwork there available for people over forever. I'm an old guy, and I had talked with my wife about the fact that if something happens to me, she has to be able to send prints out to people who wants to buy prints. You know, she has to learn how to take the vector files into Photoshop and then send them to the printer and blah, 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 blah. You know, but with this, she doesn't have to do any of that, you know. She just sit there and check her accounts, you know, if I'm in hospital or dead or whatever, you know, it's all going to be automated and it's all built in. And I think, you know, that's one of the things that's seduced me about this whole thing was the residuals, you know, and the fact that I wouldn't have to keep filling in forms, you know, because I mean, I know there's a lot of people watching this who are probably thinking of art as a career. But even if you're like me, you know, somebody who's learned all these different skills and how to promote yourself and also how to deal with the, you know, getting money out of people and all the rest of it, I could write books about this stuff, you know. But like a lot of artists, I mean, they just don't want to do that, you know what I mean? They don't want to have to be going and be brave and brash when they're demanding money from a client, you know. You just want to go, bing, you know, yeah, you got paid again, you know. No phone calls, no threats, you know, no people you know, treating you like crap, just automatic, you know, and I love that. You know? I certainly wouldn't, you know, I say to my kids, you know, if I ever catch you drawing, I'll break both your hands, you know. And even though I'm joking, the thing is that, like, unless you're very savvy and you have a thick skin, art is one of the worst. It's like modeling, you know what I mean? So they'll just break you like this. You see this thing about Marvel now? Have you heard about this? Marvel and Disney, you know, they're basically ripping off all the people that created all these characters that make them billions of dollars. Really, it's like, you know, yeah, back in the day, I used to get these contracts where people would say to me, if you fart in my building, I own it. You know, that was basically the attitude back then. And I'm not saying, you know, it's wrong by today's standards, but they are the contracts that Steve Ditko and Jack Kirby and Jim Steranko, they all signed those bullshit contracts. You know? But whether or not it's right or not, there has to be a way for artists to retain control and copyright and profits for their work, and NFTs is the way forward. That's it, you know.
Very well said. NFTs is definitely the way forward. I remember one of my favorite quote that I read from one of the interviews that you've done previously. You said something like, artists are like actors, right? They seem smug and confident when in work and fearful and paranoid when outside. It's just like humans. So it's like NFT allow them to, you know, arrest back this control of their IP, and of course, cut out the middleman to ensure that they're always paid on time, and they're able to extract, you know, revenue from their own followers and fans who love their work, rather than to actually give out this money to all these big corporations, right? I think you just mentioned a great point about Disney versus Marvel. I've been also keeping tabs on that development there. I think it's gonna be, you know, if it's gonna be a win for Marvel, right? Or Disney, it's gonna shortchange the estate of the artist.
It's a lose-lose for Marvel and Disney. You know why? Because if they lose, they lose. But if they win, they lose. And if they win, they lose really big. Because the people on the street, the people who really adore those characters, not just through Disney, but through back in the day, you know, the comics, Ditko, that amazing legacy of Jack Kirby. They're not going to put up with that. You know, they're not going to go, okay, yeah, they had this bullshit contract back in the day. It's about love, you know, and the love for Kirby is immense. The man is a god, you know. It's like, you know, they should be getting 75% of every Marvel movie that comes out, Jack Kirby family, you know, and it's all, you know, because, you know, the thing is, I've got to say this, right? It's like, I watched a documentary about Jack Kirby the other day, and I was laughing and crying, because the guy had the same pathetic little desk in an unlit basement that I had when I lived in America, you know, and that my good friend Pete Moriarty, bless his soul, R.I.P., died at a desk like that, you know, crouched over in a basement somewhere, you know, with his coffee prints and shit like this around him and his snacks, boom, like that, heart attack at the desk. And you know, Kirby should have had fucking mansions and a fleet of limousines when he was alive, you know, but he didn't. He slogged away day after day in a basement. Sorry, Iron Man. In a basement, and, you know, just to feed his family. And that's, you know, okay, it might have not been wrong then, but the idea of it now is wrong. You know, when you see what his legacy is left behind. And Disney, even if they win, they're just going to be seen as even bigger scumbags than they already are. You know?
Yeah, I think it would drive more future artists, right, to actually not work with all these big corporations, but to DIY their way, you know, through their career. And of course, NFT technology allows them to actually directly monetize, their work directly from their followers and their fans. I think this is gonna also ensure that there won't be dispute or even like potential lawsuits in the future. All these copyright issues that are just you know, a way to enrich the lawyers, right? To actually find out loopholes to see how corporations can actually benefit from the artist's original work. I think what artists would really love is to ensure that whenever these work get traded, you know, or exchange hands in the future, right, the royalties are actually in the smart contract that will never be disputed, because the computers will actually disseminate all these payments and revenues that are earned, and to ensure that they are estate in the future, generations after generation, will still continue to benefit it. So there's no way to dispute a smart contract when it's coded, and also programmability.
Exactly,
Yeah.
you know, exactly. There's no way to add to it or take anything away from it. You know, it is what it is. You know, and as far as, you know, and also the other thing we were talking about the other day was this, the reality, you know, the object of nostalgia, you know. Now, for a lot of people I know that, you know, who went through the 90s, late 90s, late 80s, early 90s, the wax track years, you know, that was a very, you know, for a lot of people, that was like a very special moment in your development, you know. And that sort of thing can't be covered with a CD or a T-shirt or a sticker. You know, you've got a family, you've got like a rec room, you've got like 2 vehicles in the garage, you're like 45 years old. You want something more than like some, you know, flaky T-shirts. You know, you want something that really connects with your spirit and remembrance of the times, you know. And I think that's what, that's how we're pacing the release of these illustrations, because they do connect with the way people. I mean, the 90s were massive for me. You know, I mean, I went from being, you know, as kind of a graphic designer, illustrator, living in London, to working in Chicago and Seattle and New York in the 90s. It was just like an amazing time. Not, you know, having a family also, but, you know, working all these, you know, being flown to and from and the rest of it. But you know what, all that work I did, you know, it's gone. There's no record of it. You know, there's no way people can buy into any of that. You know, it's just such a shame, because and I'm saying that I want something that is sealed in stone in such a way, you know, to own something of my own, if you like, that's like kind of a diary, you know, that like gives you back all those thoughts and remembrances. And I think these images are what's driving most of the success of the sales so far, you know, because the people from that generation, the 90s, when they were teenagers then, are now coming into their own in a way that, you know, and, you know, as you get older, you want to have some like really cool rack with loads of cool stuff on it, you know, that reminds you, you know, like, you know, action figures, you know, stuff like that. You know, it's it can't be as ephemeral anymore, you know. And the thing is, you know, KMFDM, their merchandising, everything, God bless them, but it's just T-shirts. You know, they don't even do posters. You know, they've got to move with the times. You know, and I hope that the NFCs, they're going to move beyond that, you know, normal way of doing business. You know, because that's the other thing. You know, sending T-shirts, the construction of T-shirts, these are all really impactful on the environment. And the people who complain about NFTs, but it's a digital file. You know, there's no shipping. There's no car or van, driving down the road, belching fumes, taking it to your house. It's direct to you. And I think the balance, the trade-off, has to be worth it.
Very well said. I think you just remind me of something that another podcast guest mentioned on my show recently. She said that the cost of not participating in NFTs are far greater than trial and errors. Yeah, of not even bringing together closer connection with your fans through minting NFTs and getting your fans feel a part of the ownership and being able to actually flex with other people. Look, at my wallet, I actually have a full collection of all KMFDM NFTs. That's going to be something that is better to brag than just maybe wearing a t-shirt, right? That gets faded, or even an autograph on a t-shirt gets faded after 5 years.
Instead of just being like, no, but instead of just being like, I always remember one of the reasons I hated going to gigs was because when I saw all those people with their lighters out, it just looked like such a bunch of fucking sheep, And now when I think that, instead of like staring up at the wall, you now can be a brick in the wall. You can actually be part of the building, And this is what's revolutionary about it, It's you don't feel like a consumer, You feel like you're part of the engine now, At least that's what I'm getting from it, I mean, the other thing is like Lords of Acid, who are also on the same group that we're working from. I went to YouTube, watched their videos. I thought these guys are great. You see, there you go. Even if you're not buying on their NFTs, immediately go and check out their stuff and maybe buy something. So as I say, it didn't have to be NFTs. It's just a case of connectivity. And also like taking, because the music industry is fucked, I mean, you talk about working with like dodgy elements. I've worked with like people in publishing. I've worked with people in IT, and I've worked in the music industry. And they're some of the dodgiest people I've ever worked with. I don't want to work with those people ever again. I mean, not only were they exploitative, but they weren't even good at being exploitative. They were just so inept, And so taking control out of these people's hands, I think this is going to usher in a portal into a new future where people who only understand beauty will be up for the job,
Very well said. And I think, could feel your excitement about NFTs. You're also greatly excited by the royalty aspect, and especially the music world, right? Where there could be like so many musicians playing on a track, but, codes and programs don't lie. You can just split royalty, accordingly. And this is not going to, allow anyone to cheat. It's not going to disadvantage anyone who doesn't agree, what's going to be showing up in a smart contract, because these are already in program and in code. So I think we could also feel that you're excited by the possibility of what you're going to be, heading on next. You love the fact that there's a community aspect where you can cross-pollinate audiences, right? Like lots of acid communities suddenly discover your work because both your NFT art drop on the same day on a platform that is so supportive, yeah? And of course, are you also excited about, displaying your art in virtual galleries, which seems to be a very trendy thing to do now. Like I personally, I'm involved in a few projects where, I'm actually helping to bring some of those art in 2D form, right, into 3D, where, anyone who puts on a pair of VR headsets, right, they can actually travel and walk around a gallery with other people wearing VR headsets, and you could feel, the presence of each other and even interacting with other people right in front of your art being displayed in a virtual gallery. I think that's something that's exciting for artists, right? Does that excite you as well?
Yeah, it does. I mean, I talked about this a long time ago because when I went to Seattle in the 90s, I was involved with like 2 of these virtual reality companies. And one of the ideas we discussed there was the virtual gallery. What we wanted to do was have like you get these little signs at the side with explaining about the artwork. The whole idea was you would touch the sign and the actual artist would appear as like a hologram figure and talk you through you know, what was behind the artwork. So yeah, I've always been interested in that. You know? Yeah, I'm also just interested in seeing how, you know, because you know, how a new type of media will come from this. You know, like I love GIFs. You know, I absolutely love them. You know, it's, you know, I literally spend most of my time communicating through GIFs. You know, to me, it's like being an actor and then being given a new way of adding to your acting skills. You know, where you say something like very, very serious, but you add a GIF that shows that you're not that serious, you know. And I think, you know, people go, oh, you know, you didn't have to talk to each other like this in those days. Well, you know what? It's actually better to talk that way, I think, you know. You know, visually, you know, using text and visuals is where I'm from. And so, you know, making a joke online, you know, by kind of balancing the GIF reaction with what you're actually saying, it's a new art, you know. And so I hope in a way, because I've got like loads of GIFs. Back when I was doing my Tweak app, all I used to do was I would sit up all night. I would make dozens of these loops, you know, GIF loops. And yeah, the guys are saying, you know, these will make great NFTs, you know. And so now Cardano is now getting behind doing animations. That's what I'm going to be doing next year. You know?
This is fantastic. Just you know, looking through some of your art, and most people, yeah, while discovering your art for the first time, they might be Googling you like furiously right now to find out what are some of the art you have created in the past, which are not available on NFTs yet. Yeah, and one of the things that caught my eye is a Massive Attack, Mad Professor, I think remix album that they recently re-released. So you basically you provided the artwork for that as well, and I would love to own that NFT because I'm a huge fan of Massive Attack. Right next to KMFDM, of course, yeah. And you know, one of the things that I'm also pretty excited by where you'll be heading next is definitely, you know, in the metaverse, right, where everyone is spending more time with their VR headsets nowadays, and it'd be great to actually see all your art in a virtual gallery. And we know that, you know, virtual land or real estate are basically free, right? So you could have an entire building of Aidan Hughes or the Brutes art with different levels featuring all your projects, and it's gonna be a museum or art gallery that's open 24/7. So anyone, you know, like even at 4 a.m. right here in Singapore, can just press a link and enter, you know, that virtual gallery of yours. And if they see something that they like, you know, instead of making mental notes and write down, you know, where they could actually, you know, purchase that, you could just hit a button and immediately purchase it using cryptocurrency, and even find out the transaction history or who are the previous owners, how many times they've been traded. So all these you know, information help them to make a decision whether to invest in one of your artwork, including the Massive Attack one, which I'm really eyeing right now.
Yeah, I have to have a word with them about that, about releasing it as an NFT. Yeah? But yeah, that was quite a funny job actually, because they asked me to do it. I can't even remember what year it was. They asked me if I'd be interested in doing it, and I said yes. And I told them that I wanted to do a mashup between this like insect art and like this old Jack Kirby cover, which I sent them for like Demon or something like this. And I said, yeah, we could do it like this. And he said, no, we want it like really big across the back. So we went backwards and forwards, and like 6 months would go past, and they'd go on tour. And then another year would go past, and then eventually they said, look, we're playing in Prague. Why don't you meet up with us after the gig, and we'll pay you, and you know, we can carry on with things. So I went to the gig. I took a couple of friends of mine. I said, I've got VIP passes. Don't worry, guys. It's like we check people everywhere. So we got to the VIP thing. We're not on the guest list, you know. So I'm like, my God, you know. Like 5 years they've been winding me up about this picture, and now I get here, you know, to come to this gig, and I'm not even on the guest list. I'm like, fuck these guys. You know, so I went back, you know, and my wife says, calm down, you know, just calm down. It's probably a mistake, you know, it's like touring. And sure enough, it was a mistake, you know, something to do with our passes. But eventually it got made, you know. But I said to them, they said, by the way, how much do we owe you? And I told them how much, and they went, but that's not what we originally discussed. I said, yeah. I said, but the standard of living has gone up 3 times since you originally
Inflation.
commissioned me to do this picture.
That's a great story. That's a great story. Anyway,
That's
before we let you go, right?
That's the longest job I've ever done.
Yeah. Before we let you go, we definitely have to talk about your mural projects, because I know that in Liverpool, right, probably inspired, mural artwork. And, when I was walking around Liverpool, right, I see murals of, like Liverpool FC, Jurgen Klopp and Jordan Henderson, or even Trent Alexander-Arnold, some of the football players, their mural were proudly displayed on buildings. So I understand you had a mural project that was unfortunately covered up, right? I think it was in Braga, maybe Italy, if I'm not wrong. So do you have any plans to actually do more mural projects in the future? And do you think that, in the metaverse or even like virtual galleries, right, will be a place where you can, present gigantic looking mural art that are in 3D model format, allowing us, to actually be there in front of building with our VR headsets and to admire some of your mural artwork that you have produced in the past?
Well, I mean, it's not Liverpool you should be checking. It's New Brighton, because New Brighton, which is on the other side of the River Mersey, on the Wirral Peninsula, which is where I was born, has just turned into this mecca for mural artists. I mean, seriously, there's nowhere else like it in the world, not even San Francisco. This place has exploded with mural art over the last 4 years.
I gotta go visit this place.
Without any backing from the local council. It's all been done. It's a mastermind of this guy, millionaire, who's from the neighbourhood, who wanted to put some money back into the town he loved. I mean, believe me, New Brighton is one of the most special places in the universe. Anybody who's ever been there will attest to it. My wife, when she first went there, she was completely scared, and everybody there just treated her, like a queen all the time she was there. And it's got such a fantastic history and everything, and it's amazing that they're putting all this it's a grassroots artistic movement that's going on there. And so I said to him, I said, look, I want to be a part of this. I said, unlike these other artists here, I said, I'm actually was born in the neighborhood, and I had a house literally just around the corner from where all this is going on, And so the guy said, yeah. He said, I've heard about you. A couple of the organisers have mentioned you, Bruce and everything. We'd really be interested in, getting your proposals for one of the buildings, So I sent a couple of proposals, and then said, and they said, yeah, these all look great. And then I said, but by the way, how do we get paid? And that was the last I ever heard of them. So, that's
NFTs.
Yeah, I mean,
perhaps this could be an NFT. Yeah,
I'm an old guy, and I'm not going up scaffolding unless my ass is covered.
This is fantastic, and of course, you have to maybe also talk to us about your, upcoming Brno and Prague Comic Con's appearance, right? Where you'll be speaking next month to promote your Bruce art bag, amongst other things. Tell us more about it.
Well, yeah, I mean, a friend of mine, Stuart, I think I mentioned you before. He's a comic artist, expat, lives in Prague. He got in contact with me and said, are you going to do anything with the Brute book at the Prague, at the Comic Con? And I said, well, it's not really a comic, so I didn't, I'm more of a kind of a book, I do book launches and things like that. And he said, no, I'll get you invited. So he got me invited, and then a couple of weeks later, I got invited to the one in Brno, which is the other major city in the Czech Republic, and they're also having they're reserving the top spot for me on Saturday night on the 9th of October, and I have no idea how they got, because I said to Stuart, I said, did you get me invited to this as well? He said, no. He said even I haven't been invited to this one. So we'll see, but it's probably, I mean, my inbox has been lighting up since the NFTs. I mean, like normally I'll get maybe 3 or 4 emails every couple of days, but my Twitter feed's fucking on fire since the NFTs. People offering me work and collaborations, And really, I just don't have the time to answer it all. So I'm going to need a secretary.
I'm sure the NFT Twitter and crypto Twitter, once they discovered and seen some of your art, right, especially what you've done for so many great bands like KMFDM, Massive Attack, you explode, in terms of your people's awareness of, the great, catalog and portfolio of work you've done previously, and everyone wants to own a piece of it. So NFT is a great way for everyone to be able to be associated with your art and, of course, your genius. And, of course, we are also looking forward to hear you speak. If I can't be there in person in Prague, right, I hope to be able to tune in live, and you'll be able to maybe broadcast some of your, speech to this part of the world in Asia, because we definitely love to follow, what you are up to next. And please come back on to this podcast in the near future to maybe premiere some of your next NFT drops. We're all really excited, and we know that this is just, barely scratching the surface. These are just two pieces of tons of other art you've created, in your few decades long career. So thank you once again, for agreeing to do this and spending time, more than an hour, I think, with us today. So any last words or messages for our listeners who are replaying this podcast on your AirPods or smart speakers later on?
Yeah. Remember to have lots of children.
Perfect way to end this show. Remember to have lots of children. So more children, more kids on the way, perhaps, from you and your wife?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I'm still capable of it, but I think she's had enough.
This is wonderful, and I hope that one day I can bring my kids over to visit you and your wife and your kid as well, and we can all have a very fun social gathering in person in Prague, in Czech Republic, right?
No, I'm not in Prague anymore. I've bought this enormous house out in the central Bohemia, which I think Bohemia is exactly the sort of place I want to end my days. So when you do come here, you've got to come out to the compound, and we've got so much room here. Bring the whole family.
We'll definitely pay you a visit. Yes.
You are a great interviewer. You have a great knack of putting me at my ease. And everybody else you interview.
And I have to say that you inspire me in more ways than one. So keep crushing, and looking forward to your next NFT drop and more virtual gallery events. I think these are all the things that will keep us really excited. And we definitely want to invite you back to tell us about your upcoming projects in the near future. I'll see you very soon, my friend. I'll bring my kids over to visit you in New Bohemia, right, in Czech Republic, and say hello to your kids and your wife on our behalf as well. So with that, I'll see you very soon, my friend. Please take care.
You too, my friend.
And take care, everyone over there, yeah?
Yeah, you too. Good night.
Good night. Goodbye.
Good morning.
Yes. Thank you. Good morning. And that's KMFDM artist Brutes, also known as Aidan Hughes. It's great, to always have this conversation with him on our podcast. I'm a huge fan of his work, as well as KMFDM. Unfortunately, Sasha Konisko is unable to join us today, but maybe next time, and I'll get a chance to maybe interview him as well. It's always great to interview OGs, in the industrial music scene, as well as people who are creating great art for all these industrial bands. And Brute has a complete Brute collection that's also available to order on Amazon. So do check that out. We'll stick that URL in our podcast show notes. So with that, I'm going to maybe hit the sack. It's almost 4:18 a.m. right in Singapore. Bedtime. I'll see you guys very soon. And shout out to Athena. How are you keeping? Thanks for tuning in live. And it's great to have you, and keeping us company as well. I'll see you very, very soon for our next broadcast. Goodbye.